Welcome to episode, I think, 62 of the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Kasey Hudson back with you in the middle of playoff hockey, start of the second round, fresh off of the draft lottery that happened in the NHL just a couple of days ago. We're going to get to that, talk about what the 7th overall pick for the Boston Bruins means with Craig Button, fellow Canadian up at tsn.ca. He joined Nesson earlier in the week. We're going to play a little bit of that. Kasey, we're going to talk about these playoffs and what already after one game, some drama already we can talk about. Public enemy number one, Sam Bennett, of the Boston Bruins, now public enemy number one of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to get into that a little bit, preview a Western matchup coming up, and just go over some hockey. But first, as usual, I want to start with a little catch up. So we've had Adam Pellerin. Adam and I have been hosting recently over the last couple of weeks. You've been busy. What have you been up to? I know you're new to Boston. I don't know if you've had any chance to check it out or if you're just like sleeping and working, which I feel like that's probably all you're doing, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an option B there, sleeping and working. I'm looking forward to adventuring Boston here soon. My family's coming up the first week of June, and we're going to go be touristy, do all the things, go check out Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. We were told to go to New Hampshire also, and then I have a friend trying to come down and go to Rhode Island. So the whole tour day, New England coming soon. But you said it, I mean, running in a couple directions, feeling the crossover for the first time since I'm helping out with some Red Sox coverage. So we had the first unobstructed views of the season last night. We've got batting practice today with Adam Pellerin. So it's definitely been the sleep cycle going on. But I've finally started to find a little bit of a routine, Sophia, because that's the weird part about moving, finding your gym, finding what you want to do. So shout out to SoulCycle for getting me back into substance of a routine, and Warrior Ice Arena.
Okay, wait, hold on. So is your gym SoulCycle? Are you like just cycling, or I mean, I know you're skating too, and I don't want to say just because it's a pain in the ass. I have a Peloton and it will kick your butt. But is that your thing? We're not going to talk too much about this, but I love to get to know people's routines and their workout routines. Is that what you do? And are you a morning routine person? You could not pay me $1 million to get up before I need to get up. Like, unless I'm catching a flight.
So you're not a morning person.
Well, I want to be, and I enjoy the mornings, but I guess like I'm not working out before I have to go to work. Like, there's no chance.
That one's difficult. Yeah, that one's really difficult, especially considering hair, makeup, and trying to not overthink that whole routine on top of the working out part. I will say, on an ideal work schedule, I'm an afternoon workout person. I'm not the person that likes to rally too late in the evening. I'm big on my wind downs, but if I can get that lunch break workout, midday workout, and I don't have to be on camera after, that's the sweet spot for me. But no, I actually instructed spin a couple years ago when I was like climbing up in the industry on my grind, and it ended up being a thing that I shared with my best friend before she passed away. So like, I loved spin, but I've always had to like intertwine like HIIT training. I just love the adrenaline rush of like weight training combined with cardio. So yeah, I was a bit of a fitness head and finally found cycling again because it's just that quick workout, but I still have to do weights in between that because it helps with the skating a lot. So just, that's what I mean by the routine, just kind of getting the combination of like all the things that I love to do.
Okay, well, I mean, if this was my show, I would continue talking about this on the podcast. We'd be talking about the makeup and hair routine and all our workout stuff, but we'll move on from that because I don't think people listening tuned in for that. Although, you never know. I mean, tweet us if you want to hear more about that. But no, let's talk about the draft lottery. Listen, you're super busy. I probably should have asked you this before we got on the show. If you didn't have a chance to watch it, that's okay. That was the only thing I was doing that day. Just a quick yes or no. Did you watch it live or did you just see the recap?
No, I watched it live because I was so intrigued by the setup and some of the new approaches that they had to this year. It just felt so game showy, so I couldn't miss Buccigross rolling that out for Bruins fans.
Okay, yeah. So what were your thoughts about it in terms of like production? And this is like, I'll give you mine really quick. I feel like some people were like, oh, so cheesy, so dramatic. But like, what else are you going to do? Be casual about it and be like, oh, here's a 5, here's a 2. Like, you know, you got it. Bettman's in the house, like NHL staff's in the house. You've got to make it a thing. That's what TV's for. And, you know, people are kind of laughing about I think there was dramatic music. I don't know, but like the balls, you know, whatever. I thought it was well done. And I liked to see the process of how, how the balls show up and how like the odds or whatever decided. I didn't mind seeing that. What did you think?
I thought that like they made good on a situation as how I initially approached it, because it's funny. I had my mom on FaceTime and like had zoomed in so she could see it with me because I was taking notes. And
nice.
She was like, "Is this Jeopardy?" And I was like, "No, Mom, it's not Jeopardy."
That's good.
And then she was like, "This reminds me of like bingo at Abuela's like home or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, there we go." So I got a combination of vibes. It was like, bingo night meets Jeopardy, but at the end of the day, like considering the setup, how else are you going to make that even more flashy? Like they could add like a light show if they wanted to. It was cool to see the guy crunching the numbers on the side and coming up with like, who was eliminated, who was still standing kind of thing. So it was cool. It was interesting. But yeah, I could see part of the cheese that was involved in all of it.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what TV is. It's cheese, it's Hollywood, it's flashy. But I thought the same thing. Like it was cool and happy to see it again. I liked kind of like seeing the behind the scenes. But most importantly, let's talk about where the Bruins landed. So 2 below where they were projected or where they could have, should have, whatever, in the 5th spot. So the worst, I guess, they could have landed. Before we talk about that, like, shout out to the New York Islanders. Like, geez, like, holy crap. Like, being able to jump that many spots, like, they're thrilled. Like, we thought the Bruins had a chance, but we're like, oh, it's such a minimal chance. And then I think they were 10th originally, the Islanders, and they jump up to 1. Like, damn.
A massive jump. And then considering some of the talent that they've already got in their pocket with Cole Eiserman and then potentially targeting, BC, James Higgins. I saw all the cute pictures of him in his like previous youth Islanders gear and whatnot, but it just puts them in such a good position to continue adding on in what I think is safe to call a rebuild now. So, they got so lucky. It's crazy how this lottery tends to pan out, and it creates a lot of panic, but it's unique.
Yeah. Well, we can talk a lot about how the Bees jumped down 2 spots. I mean, they'd love to pick 5 instead of 7th. Fine. And they would have loved to pick 2nd, 3rd, or 4th too. Or 1st, obviously, but that's not the case. I'd love to kind of like break this down for you, but we did have and we might after. We did have an expert on. Boston has entered the chat, Craig Button of tsn.ca, who knows all the goods about the projected draft and what the Bees might need. So why don't we listen to him first, and then we can talk about it after. Here's Craig Button on Boston has entered the chat.
Let's start with the draft. So it was a lot of ping pong balls being drawn. My degree from MIT wasn't able to figure it out, but the Bruins, end of the day, got the 7th overall pick. Looking at this draft, what type of draft are we getting with these NHL prospects overall, not just with the guys that the Bruins could be selecting at 7?
Well, why don't we kind of tie it in with the Bruins? And so you have a defenseman in Matthew Schaefer, really top-notch defender. But then after that, you have some really good centers. Now, isn't that exactly when you're going into a draft? If you're looking to try to build up an area of your team that needs building up, you got centers, and you're going to have a choice of a number of centers. I'm a big believer that if you don't draft a center, you're not going to have a center when you need a center. And the Bruins need some top-end centers. And I think there are top-end centers available to them at 7. They'll have to make a choice. It's not going to just come down to one player. They'll have to make a choice, I think, between 2, maybe 3 of them. But I think it sets them up for finding that player that can anchor the middle of the ice. I mean, the Bruins were lucky over the last dozen years with Krejci and Bergeron in the middle of the ice. You had 1 and 2 covered off perfectly. Obviously, their retirements affected the team in a way that wasn't positive. And that's going to happen when you lose top end players. But they have an opportunity now to come back. I'm going to bring up, the Bruins have been such a good team for so many years now. I thought Cam Neely did a fantastic job in his press conference last week. He was pressed. He acknowledged where maybe we could have done something different. But people going back to the 2015 draft, 10 years ago. And let's not forget, and I'm going to add this little bit of fact for everybody, there's only about 45 players in every draft that play 350 games or more. The Bruins had 2 of them. They had Jake DeBrusk and Brandon Carlo. So let's not look at it. And Ryan Leonard was a draft pick to the Washington Capitals when they were picking high. And the Washington Capitals were able to transform their team now into a really top team. I think this high pick for the Bruins gives them an opportunity to follow along similar steps.
Man, I'm so glad to hear you say this, my friend, because listen, everywhere you look right now, and maybe it was because of the cautious optimism that this team would end up with a top 3 pick maybe, and that didn't happen. But from what I'm hearing around here, everyone's saying there's no generational talent, like a Connor Bedard type in this draft, but they're talking down on the draft class in totality. Can you give me an identity on this draft class? I mean, and you're saying there, this team, the Bruins, have an opportunity to get some quality centers here. Big picture for this draft. Is this a deep draft? Do you see a lot of great players, a lot of good, serviceable players? What do you sort of see big picture for this draft class?
You know what's funny, Travis, is I get asked this question about who could be a sleeper? And I go, well, everybody's looking for a sleeper. And if I knew who the sleeper was, I'd put him in the top 5, right?
Right.
So you're trying to identify the players that you think. And we know Patrice Bergeron was a second-round draft pick. He's going into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot.
Wow.
So when I hear commentary that, a draft isn't deep, I always find that it goes back to the top end of a draft. Okay, there's no Celebrini, there's no Bedard, there's no McDavid, there's no Matthews. Well, if that's the only way you're going to define a draft, then if those players aren't in it, then nobody has a chance. And that isn't reality. The reality is that there's going to be really good players that are going to be drafted, that are going to have really good careers and help teams win in the National Hockey League. There's going to be some players that we didn't know were going to be that good, that are going to come in and help their team play. And you're looking at 17 and 18-year-old kids that you're trying to project when they're in the NHL, moving into an area where they can be real significant contributors. They're 21, 22. That's a long ways off. So you're trying to project everything with that in mind. But I said earlier, there's 45 players on average that play 350 games or more in the NHL from any draft. It's going to be the same in this draft. And there's going to be some really good players coming. And when it comes down to Hall of Famers, go just look at the NHL draft. Like every NHL draft doesn't have a Hall of Famer, but it doesn't mean there's not good players that help you be successful. And I don't have any doubt that there's some players in this draft that are going to be really good. And again, the narrative surrounding it is I never bought into it. And I'm not buying into it now.
All right, so Bruins picking at 7. You listed out that they need a center, and there will be a lot of centers in that range. Who are some of the prospects that they will be looking at, and some of the prospects that you like at that spot at the 7th overall?
Yeah. Well, so we start looking at center. I want to start with one player, Roger McQueen, and he's a 6'5" right shot center. That if he wasn't injured this year, he had a back issue, and he didn't get enough. He didn't get a lot of games in. He got under 20 games, I believe, was all he was able to get in. But an unbelievable talent, and he would be in the discussion for first overall if he played the whole year. So for teams right now looking to try to understand, okay, what's the medical report and everything that I get, and I'm not going to do the same in-depth work that the NHL teams are doing, is that it's all positive. It just needed some time. And with that type of injury, no concerns. But given that Caden Lidstrom, who was the 4th overall pick last year, had a back injury and might just make teams a little bit hesitant. But you get to a point at 7, and you're looking at a player like Roger McQueen, and you're thinking, wow, like I know what the injury thing is. I think the Bruins need to make sure they do a deep, deep dive on Roger McQueen because 6'5" centerman with the skill that he has don't come along very often. You have to be satisfied with the medical report, and then you have to move forward with that. Dean Letourneau, who they drafted first in the first round last year, had his growing pains at Boston College. But you got to be patient with these players. And all of a sudden, Dean Letourneau starts to progress like he's expected to. Yeah, Roger McQueen, if he's the guy that you're having, all of a sudden up the middle of the ice, you're looking at 2 monstrous centermen that can be a big difference, can make a big difference. Now, the reason I bring him up is because I think that healthy, he's in the discussion at the top, not there at 7. Anton Frondell. He's a brilliant center out of Sweden. Reminds me so much of Sasha Barkov. So you're looking at a player that is so smart, so complete. Yeah, when the Bruins fans have been spoiled by Patrice Bergeron, just that superb productivity, just night in, night out, game in, game out, year in, year out, and a championship caliber player. Jake O'Brien, a right shot center from Brantford, another really good right shot center that can do it all, like in terms of both ends of the rink. You have Caleb Desnoyers, a center with Moncton, who's got a high motor. But again, those strong two-way centers. You watch the NHL playoffs, and Bruins fans have watched Bergeron perform against anybody that he was asked to perform against and end up on the right side of it. Those are just four centers that I think that could be in consideration at 7. I said I think 2 of them will be there. There might be 3 they have to make a decision on. But when I look at those 4 centers, I just think that the Bruins have a real opportunity to get somebody that can be a significant addition to their group and somebody that can be really, really instrumental to success in the years to come.
You know, as I have you here breaking down these prospects, and I'm hearing you talk about who could be available at 7, who may not be, I wonder. I mean, it poses a question. Should the Bruins consider moving up here? Now, I look at the top 3, and I think, boy, those teams may not even want to entertain any phone calls there, but I don't know. Could you move to 4 where Utah is? Is that some wiggle room? In other words, do you see a path where it makes sense for the Bruins to move up in this draft, trade up, and ensure they get one of these guys you're breaking down?
Well, to try to ensure, but it also moves you into what I believe another category of player. Is it Michael Misa? Is it James Higgins? Right? Who, like in my view, just will simply not be there at 7. So when you start to evaluate and you start to look at, okay, what would it take for us to get up there? And you're evaluating players with respect to, like we think this guy's better than this player. Yeah, I think for the Bruins to try to consider that, teams are always, and because there's so many centers, so let's just use Utah, Travis, as an example. So Utah sits there and goes, well, we might like one of the guys I just mentioned at 7. They might say, hey, we're comfortable with Roger McQueen. We know we can get him at 7. The Bruins can move up to 4 and now get one of those other players and assure themselves of taking the guy they have right near the top of their list in terms of centers. So there's always that opportunity, and I think the Bruins absolutely should and will explore that opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. You have that need at center. There's top-end talent at the center position. Misa and Higgins, of course, Higgins with BC you just mentioned. Yeah. Go out and get the guy. When you look at all these centers, too, who do you see as immediate impact? Who do you see developmental, especially in the Bruins case? Let's say in this one, they stay back at 7, and it could be McQueen or it could be Desnoyers.
Yeah, I think they're like a healthy Roger McQueen. They're closer to playing than not playing. Frondell closer to playing than not playing. So when I say closer to playing, I'm talking 19. Like, not next year, but Anton Frondell has played in the Swedish Allsvenskan, which is the second tier league. Their team won the championship. He was an excellent player. So having that training, Desnoyers has always been ahead, and Roger McQueen, if he's healthy and everything, like he's got all the tools. And the physical ability, the physical maturity will be continuing to come for him and be good. Those 3 guys, I would say, are closer to playing. And when I want to make sure it's 19. It's not 18. It's not next season, but the year after, I think that they could be coming in and showing that they're ready to push for a spot on the Bruins.
Gosh, brother, I could talk draft with you all day. I have you here. I have to ask you, can you share any stories with us? I mean, in your years of being an analyst, or also in the front office, by the way, in the NHL, like, are there any guys that you evaluated and you thought this is our guy, this is a sleeper? We talked about sleepers earlier. This is our dude, and maybe you whiffed on it. Maybe you were totally wrong, or vice versa. Maybe there was a guy you didn't think that could cut it, and they became a star. Can you share any draft stories from your own personal experience with this stuff of how you either got it right or wrong?
Yeah, well, all you got to do is look at the record to see where we got it wrong, where I got it wrong. So, I'm not, who celebrates their losses? Although we were just talking about Derek Jeter talking about in his commencement speech, about failure, and you learn from that. I mean, the NHL scouts are they're looking at the best players at the levels below the NHL. All the sports are. So you're drafting players, selecting players that you know have been good, and you're hoping that they can come in, and sometimes it doesn't work out. There's two players I'm going to mention. One just happens to be the assistant general manager of the Boston Bruins, Jamie Lagenbrunner, and watching him at Cloquet High School as a 17-year-old player, I mean, he was brilliant. And we had a high pick that year in the draft at 9, and we didn't take Jamie, but we tried to move around to see about getting a player, and not trying to try to move up, because we coveted Jamie so much. And all of a sudden, we're in this race to try to find a way to trade up, and then we said, well, maybe we'll get him with our second round pick. And lo and behold, we did. Jamie was instrumental to our Stanley Cup team in 1999. He was instrumental to the New Jersey Devils Stanley Cup in 2003. He's an excellent executive. He's an outstanding person, leader. I don't have any doubt that he'll be a general manager of the National Hockey League one day. So that is the one where you were just hoping, because there's times when you don't get the player that you're hoping to get. Well, we ended up getting Jamie, and it was just such a boon to us. The other player, and Jamie played with him in Dallas, was Jere Lehtinen. We drafted him in the 4th round, and I'd like to tell you, we knew how good he'd be. Boy, were we lucky, because our Finnish scout was raving about him, and we kept passing on him, and then we got him in the 4th round, 3-time Selke Trophy winner, Jere Lehtinen. So there's times when you just, despite your own work and sometimes working against your own best interests, you find a way to get on the right side of it, and boy, did we get on the right side of it with Jere Lehtinen.
Hey, Jamie's son, Mason, he's one of the Bruins prospects in their farm system, playing at Harvard right down the road in Cambridge as well. You spoke about the top guys.
I got to tell you a funny story, George. I got to tell you a funny story about Jamie. So Jamie was a junior at Cloquet High School when it was the draft year. The USHL wasn't what it was now. He couldn't enter college hockey at that point in time. So he was looking for the next challenge. He was the best player in the state of Minnesota that year. Wasn't eligible to win Mr. Hockey because it's only for senior players. So he now is looking to consider. He ended up going to Peterborough, the Ontario Hockey League, because he felt that was a nice challenge for him, and he was brilliant in Peterborough. In fact, they just honored Jamie back in the fall. They honored him, and you think about Peterborough, it's a long line of great people that have come out of Peterborough. But Ron Tomasino, who was the head coach of Harvard at that time, said to me, he goes, there's no way you can't encourage somebody not to go to Harvard. And I said to Ron, Ron, I am not discouraging anybody from going to Harvard, but he's going to have to wait a year. And Jamie wanted to go and play, and we know how his career ended. So when Mason went to Harvard, and he's going to be the captain at Harvard University next year, it just took a generation for a Lagenbrunner to get to Harvard. And so for Mason to get there, it's really good.
Hey, it was a legendary Ted Donato Harvard out there playing Minnesota.
Yep. Jamie
and Ted obviously meet up. Mason meets Ted. Quick conversation, and then Mason's word to his dad. Mason told me this: I want to go to Harvard and play for him. So there you go. Eventually, Jamie got the deal done for them. It goes full circle. When we look at now the Bruins, we talk draft with them, we talk centers, they have that need. They also have $28 million in cap space. They need more than prospects to get this thing back on track to the playoffs and being contenders. What would be, you're the GM, you're looking at the full offseason plan, what would be your top priority, top of the list where you're going, we have to address this position group, and maybe this aspect of the team?
Well, you have a really good goaltender, right? I know Jeremy Swayman didn't have his best year. Okay, so you can have an off season. It doesn't mean you're going to have two seasons that are subpar. And I don't have any question that Jeremy's an elite number one goaltender. Hampus Lindholm was hurt for a long stretch of this season. Him coming back healthy is going to be significant. You have Charlie McAvoy. He's the bedrock of the blue line. Like when you think about what the Bruins have, and I'm starting with what they have, because I think that's really important to recognize that they have some really good, strong elements and key positions covered off. Charlie, certainly, I'm a big Mason Lohrei fan. I think that he's just going to continue to progress. And so now you have these three rangy defenders that are really good, and the bedrock in Charlie McAvoy. Pasternak's a superstar. He's an unbelievable difference maker. I think they have enough of the other areas in their group that, like grind and grit and physical play. They need to add more skill. They had a tough time scoring at times this year. I think the focus for Don Sweeney is to try to find more skill. I think Elias Lindholm is a really good second-line center. He'll become better with help in front of him. Instead of being asked to try to do more than he's capable of, I think that getting Elias into a good spot will help him and help the Bruins. But to be able to add some skill, to be able to add more skill into their upper part of their forward group, I think that would be a significant focus for the Bruins. We all know that is their focus. I don't think anybody would be surprised. I'm not giving away anything. Wow, geez, Craig, you just wow. Who knew? The Bruins fans know, and I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Because the cap is not just going up next year. You got certainty that for the next 3 years it's going up. And now you have some cap space. They cleared out some room. And now opportunity. It's not just in the free agent market. It's also going to be in the trade market. Younger players. And I'm just putting out a name. I don't know anything. But this type of a player that you might want to explore. Trevor Zegras. He's got 1 year left in Anaheim. I think that he's got all kinds of oodles and oodles of talent. And I'm not saying him specifically. I'm using him as an example of how you look around the league to try to find other players under contract that might be younger. Because I don't think it's just the free agents you have to look at. You have to look at building out that skill in different ways. And the draft is one opportunity to add elements to your team. The free agency is and trades are too. And teams trying to maneuver with the cap going up, I think that the flexibility for the Bruins at this juncture in time is really significant and will allow them to do the things, or to allow them to have the opportunity to do the things that are necessary to get them back into contending position.
I love it. Faster, get more skilled, what the Bruins need. And I like exploring the trade market. Smart man. He's Craig Button of TSN. Craig, appreciate you taking the time.
All right, great stuff from Craig Button on all the draft possibilities, maybe moving up for the Boston Bruins. But Kasey, we can talk that and more because we have breaking news. Can't believe it. Breaking news out of Utah and out of Leafs and Panthers morning skate. We're going to talk about that right after the break, guys. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Kasey, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was like 2 shows ago, Adam and I were chit-chatting and we were trying to get a breaking news sound for this show. And we got some cheesy ones. We got some like good beeps and bops or whatever they are. You know how they sound? Yeah, beeps and bops. We don't have that sound now, and I would do it for you, but I will save myself.
Give me one.
There you go.
I had to change a little bit so we weren't copying anyone.
Okay, yeah, infringement on copyright. We do have breaking news, which is kind of cool on a Monday morning. The Utah Hockey Club is now known as the Utah Mammoth. So team, logo, all that out there in the public. What's your initial reacts to that?
Well, first it's finally, but it's funny because I think it was almost a week ago that everyone kind of picked up on the team handle being changed across social media. You can get away with nothing on social media.
I know.
It's ridiculous. So I feel like the hint was out there, but I love this. I mean, having an identity just gives you that extra factor of fun to add to hockey, So at this point, I'm excited to see what are the graphics going to be? What's the production going to be? We already saw #TuskUp, I think it is. So I'm glad that they finally figured it out. I've always loved the colors for Utah Hockey Club, and my best friend's little son, he's 2 years old, he's already all into this, black jersey focus, and then just the contrast of everything. That's his hockey clothes. We have to get him Utah stuff. So I think it looks sick. I wanted Yeti so bad, but Mammoth it's close. It's right there. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, you were Team Yeti. Okay, I was very indifferent. I like the jerseys. I'm looking at the colors right now. Not a big, they're good. They're good. I'm not a big baby blue fan. I know the Lightning kind of have that. I'm trying to think of. The Jets do too. They have baby blue, and I like their jerseys. I would have to think of all the other teams, but I feel like those.
Maybe
What's
that's
that?
why I gravitate towards the light blue. It's my birthstone.
Oh, you like it? It's your birthstone?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually they're not bad. The jerseys are cool. The colors are cool. I like the name Mammoth, and for us, it's kind of okay, whatever, cool. Number 32 team, has that. Oh, I think they're cracking on baby blue too. But if you're a Utah fan and you've got this brand new franchise in your area that you're cheering for, and then the name and the logo and the jersey comes out, like the hype is real. I think it looks pretty good, and excited for those fans, and just keep rolling with the expansion and all that. So we've got that as breaking news, and we kind of have more breaking, but it could change because it's not official. But right now, as we speak, morning skates going on between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oh my God, so many storylines. The biggest one, obviously, Sam Bennett versus Anthony Stolarz 1v1. Sam Bennett already, no need to introduce him to the Bruins fan base. Public enemy number one during the series that they had. And now, according to everyone in Toronto, and the media is friggin' crazy there, Kasey. Like, it's crazy. It's like you've never seen it before. Yeah, that's all everyone's talking about. So first, let's get to the breaking news, and we kind of go backwards. But you actually alerted me to a tweet that Matt Murray on the ice during morning skate, which suggests that he's going to be a possible backup for Joseph Woll, meaning Stolarz is likely not going to get the start. So that's what that's suggested as, but coaches haven't talked. We don't actually know what's going on yet. Your thoughts on the whole situation, wherever you want to start, whether it's the craziness, was it egregious? Does it need to blow over? Like, what are you feeling about this?
Yeah, a lot of different things to unpack in it. Like you said, Bennett is enemy number one. So of course, immediately all of our thoughts go to elbow contact to the face, and then you've got the contrasting perspective on it. He did take a puck to the helmet, to the head earlier that night, which could have kind of already set things into effect. I'm not a doctor, so I won't even try to pick and choose what happened to really set things off for Stolarz. I just know that the scariest part about it is the instant puking.
Yeah.
As someone who's collected 2 concussions in her life, I can say the second one, nausea hit within 45 minutes, and they're like, if that happens, ER immediately. So it just sucks because you don't want it to be one of those things that takes the air out of the Maple Leafs tires, losing Stolarz after such a big performance versus the Senators, and just kind of a key guy that was really getting locked into his role there. But it just makes me concerned to the fact that he's not going to be back too much sooner than we thought, for one, but then also the positive being he's not going to be rushed back into a situation because the concussion aspect of it is very serious. So wasn't a big fan of that. I will say, I just have to say it, the Panthers in these timely, untimely situations, the consistency and the coincidence behind it, it does kind of have to die down, especially when you're looking at a situation as severe as this. When you're playing with people's heads, especially in this sport, we got to be a little bit more tactical and reasonable with it. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, the pesky Panthers, really, they are annoying. They are gritty. They are chippy. They are frustrating as hell to play against. But it works for them, obviously. But I agree, there are fine lines, so on and so forth. A couple of things that, watching the replay, you drive hard to the net. That's what you do. I don't think it was egregious. When Sam Bennett hit Brad Marchand and then we got that other angle, that to me, we got the other angle 10 minutes before we went to air on Nesson for a pregame. And that's all I wanted to talk about. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was pissed. And knowing that the NHL had that other angle, blah, blah, blah. That one was kind of a WTF and just annoying. This one, I've only seen the angles that are out. I just don't think it was on purpose. The other thing, Stolarz played for the Florida Panthers.
Right. He said they're friends.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And actually, most guys, the NHL is so close. There are very few people that actually really hate each other. They train in the same places. They cottage and do their lake life in the same places in the summers. So that's a narrative that isn't that uncommon. But a former teammate as of last season, I just don't think there was purpose as much as I'd, Bennett, I'd love to add to that narrative. I don't think that's the case. The weird thing is, and maybe I should have done a little bit more reading about this before talking about it, but you mentioned the throwing up. I'm surprised that he's even an option. Doesn't the league have a say of you can or can't, or there's a certain amount of, with the concussion protocol
that you should be withheld from, right?
Yeah. So Yeah, so the fact that we're talking about it as a maybe, Brandon Carlos said he looked good at breakfast and we'll see, possible game time decision is wild to me considering all they've done to make sure concussions don't happen, to make sure incidents that happened with Sidney Crosby where he missed an entire season. And then, of course, like after you retire, how it can affect your life. So I'm surprised. I got to look into that a little bit more, that he was even an option. But it looks like Joseph Woll and Matt Murray will be backing him up, which Wall's no schmuck. He's good.
And I feel like people are freaking out as if Woll hasn't had some of his prove-it moments. I mean, I'm sure all of Toronto was rallying behind him when he stood on his head for this team a number of times, and that was considering a weaker defense in front of him. So I feel like Woll's not getting enough credit. Maybe I'm a big fan of his piano skills off the ice, but I feel like Woll can still show up for this team, and he's got a better structure in front of him to make it more interesting. And I don't even think they should be considering Stoles. I think you make a great point to even say, why is this a maybe at this point? There's so many potential lingering effects with just a mild concussion. If you're puking, you're above mild. So we shouldn't even be looking at him for at least 2 games, just in case, because you're at the most intense part of playoffs. Driving to the net, having these incidences. How many goalie interferences did we see last year? I wouldn't even want to chance it, considering that Toronto could be in a better position to move on this year. And I've heard and I have felt that intensity from Toronto. I'm sure you know it better than anyone else, but I wouldn't even jeopardize it if I was Toronto.
No, I agree. And, it's like when you have, I don't know, an injury to your leg or your ankle sore, or your fingers sore or something, you're just so hyper aware of it. You're like, okay, don't use this part of my body. When you're showering, you're like, okay, careful if I touch this part of my body. And I know these are athletes, we probably asked them, they want to play through, and especially in the NHL, they play through everything. But with your head, you'd think that he'd, kind of no pun intended, be more in his head about just being a little bit more careful. Yeah, I wouldn't chance it either. Give it some more time. And this is not just game. This is your life afterwards. It's no joke. So we'll have to see what the official report is after when coaches talk and all that. But another narrative I wanted to address about this is that the retaliation has been discussed, retaliation on Sam Bennett. Should the Leafs be doing that? Here's where the Florida Panthers, that's what they're really good about. They're good at, like you said, they're pesky, they're annoying, and then they know they get under a team's skin. And maybe in that same game, the reffing, we've seen they do their best, but it's not always consistent. But in the following game, when referees are aware of certain storylines, it would be really dumb for Toronto to try to retaliate, because you do not want to have a couple guys in the box for stupid things. And then all of a sudden, the Panthers have a couple man advantages or whatever. They know what they did. They know how frustrated Leafs fans are. They know how much pressure the media has on them on being are you guys strong enough? Are you guys a playoff team? They know they're scrutinized. So now they're waiting for the Leafs to come out, retaliate, and take some dumb penalties. And this game is going to be reffed extra careful, because that's what the refs are looking out for. They've got to be disciplined. They've got to put their passion into their play, maybe some hard hits, but they can't be stupid with that. And what's your take on that?
Oh my gosh, I love that you brought this up, because it's so true. It was talked about in the first period how typically the Panthers try to bait their opponent into playing at their physical, just ramp things up kind of play. And what the Leafs did so well is they didn't bite the bait in game 1. They forced the Panthers to play their game. So it would just be crazy to come into this matchup. Yes, there's storylines. Yes, that bait is out there. How are you going to respond to losing Stolarz? They need to respond by winning the series. They need to respond by sticking to their game, just like you said. I think you put it perfectly. Focus on your play, put the passion and the power behind your play, because they dictated that game for a majority of 60 minutes versus the Panthers, which forced them to play out of their element. And it kind of exposed Bobrovsky a little bit too, because there was just such a rhythm to the Leafs consistently having this offensive firepower on them. And so they just have to come in and do what they do, because I think they checked the boxes so well in adding where they needed to. And a reason why they would maybe almost fall into the bait is because the Leafs have kind of been chirped to not be a very physical team or a physical responding team in the playoffs, especially over the course of the past couple of seasons. They have that element now. You've got such a brilliant blue liner in Chris Tanev. Don't change anything. Don't bite the bait. Come out here and just play. So I think that's a massive point out for you, because I think that it's so true. you don't want to see them come into this and like the refs be harping on it a bit more and then giving so much opportunity to the other end, the team that knows how to play this kind of dirty fight.
Yeah, and that's where everyone talks about like how important playoff experience is, especially when your core is young. And this is where it comes into play. Like we have the stats sheet, advanced stats, but you don't really have experience on that. And we know that the postseason is such an up and down, and it's about managing emotions. Like how many times have we seen teams with like amazing skill but blown out in the first or second round? Like I can think of the Lightning a couple of years ago who were just on a roll. The Boston Bruins, Bruins is different because they had a lot of guys with playoff experience there, but yeah, no. So this is where the Marners, Nylander, Austin Matthews, where if you're younger, you're not used to the media and the pressure and like the narratives that you're trying to ignore are like, does this team have what it takes? Are they physical enough? Are they strong enough that you're like, oh, I got to go prove this point. But after years of getting eliminated, after going through the ups and downs, this is when you're calmer. This is when you're able to ignore that. And that's like when playoff experience and all the losses before kind of, come out and show that that you can control that emotion. But anywho, I want to get your thoughts on that, but actually we do have to toss to break again. So maybe we can get your wrap on that. We're also going to look ahead to a couple of games, big series between the Jets and the Dallas Stars. Could some of their injured players be coming back? We will discuss after the break with Kasey on Hockey Hub. All right, welcome back. We're almost done with this Panthers-Leafs conversation, but I had to throw it a break. I feel like you had something to say about the whole experience thing before we move on to Jets-Stars looking ahead.
I know. Well, I just wanted to give like a compliment because I think you mentioned the other day on Hockey Hub just kind of like the growth that one should see out of a Marner and Matthews and so on and so forth. The core four, as Biz calls it now, the core five, because Matthew Nyes is on fire. But I think that this is going to be the test of their maturity, especially as like the guys who now have to be like the veterans of the franchise. So just wanted to touch on that. And I just like the approach of a potential core five because everyone knows that from the Minnesota Gophers, I'm a huge Nyes fan. So
yeah, Nyes is so fun to watch and like was since the start, and is going to earn some big money, which is great for him. It's always lots of fun. All right, let's look ahead a little bit. The game sevens for both teams, absolutely wild for the Stars and how they came back, and hat trick, and the Jets with like 1.6 on the clock, like so fun. And this is setting up a good matchup for round 2, game 1. But both teams without some key players. The Winnipeg Jets, their guys missing just like a little bit of time, not a lot, whereas the Dallas Stars could be, and again, we're not at morning skate, so we'll have to see how things happen, but could be back with Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen. So what is your initial thought on this preview and this matchup? And I think it's going to go 7, by the way.
Oh my gosh, I agree. I definitely think this has to be a 7 series, considering that like the Jets are going to get healthy from what we're seeing and hearing, like a notch, maybe a game or two after the Stars get healthy.
Yep.
But when you have such a relentless push as tying up the game at 1.6 and then going into double overtime, you're looking at a team that's going to really rally and continue to push matters to their own hands and their own advantage. And then comes the whole Hellebuck angle. Are his statistics going to do and replicate what they did in round 1? Well, if that's the case, this is a Stars team that can very much take advantage of that. So definitely with you on 7 games. What I'm just excited about is just continue to see more of a positive narrative and, again, revenge tour for Mikko Rantanen. I've been a big fan of his play since he got to the Colorado Avalanche. My friend's husband actually played with him for a while, and he's just it's incredible to watch guys that are complete playmakers in such a number of ways, whether it's setting up your line mates for assists or making sure that you find the back of the net yourself. But it's Wyatt Johnson, and as young as he is and the way that he's contributing, but you get a Jason Robertson back in the lineup and it adds such a punch to the power play. And you're talking about a Jets team that just came out of the series with the most hits and the most penalty minutes. So if they bring that energy versus this Stars team that can capitalize on special teams, then we might be looking at a little less than 7, right at 6, but still just a really crazy matchup overall.
Yeah, the Connor Hellebuck narrative is a huge one. Obviously, hoping that he, some of the articles and the reporters were saying that he can be in charge of that narrative if he steps up his game and takes control of a series, especially if you played a certain way in round one, your team's playing well in front of you, they get things done for you, then you can kind of be a huge boost if that's how you got out of it, be a huge boost in round two. So that's obviously going to be a narrative to watch. Maybe we'll talk to Razor about this somewhere in the week or whatever, but a goaltender and where your head's at, like in playoffs and whatever, it's just a different beast. And we've seen some completely steal series in years past, and sometimes it's average and it's enough, and then sometimes you can lose a series for a team too if you're not on your game. Even with the Bruins, Lena Solmark, who I love so much as a person, so no knock to him, but like great in the regular season, and then in the playoffs you're like, oh wait, what's going on? And it's a mental thing. So that's definitely, I think, a big storyline that we're going to have to be watching out for. And the bigger it is, the more he's probably in his own head about it.
Yeah, and that's the fun effect of playoffs, right? I mean, maybe not fun for the guy between the pipes, but you look at some of these teams where like they don't have to have the outstanding goalie, yet they just tend to have the ability to continue moving forward. And then you have these teams where it's like if your outstanding goalie is not outstanding, even though you have so much talent in front of you, things can still fall apart. So I love that playoff hockey is a beast in itself, and there's just so many things that you can wait on the edge of your seat to see play out.
Totally. And even the narrative, like I think it's changed after the Cup, but like the narrative around Sergei Bobrovsky was, just like average, good goaltender. And then, playoffs, like a completely different beast, or just some of the saves that he would make, game-changing saves. And you don't have to make 5 of them a game. You make one game-changing save, then big save, that changes the momentum. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a big storyline for Jets fans. We were talking, you and I, pregame, just like setting up the show. For Jets fans, this is huge. They have the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, which is a CFL team. The CFL season isn't that big, isn't that long, and they're really passionate there. But this is what they've got. Like the Winnipeg Jets have Winnipeg has the Winnipeg Jets, and it's cold all year. It's brutal in Winnipeg. Nice summers and stuff, but like this is their baby. This is their New England Patriots, and they're just like going crazy over there. So for them, I'm super happy, and obviously the Dallas Stars fans too. I love to see how that market has grown, and they do such a good job. Some people calling it cheesy. Do you think the lights are cheesy? The green lights down the
I don't think they're cheesy, but I could see them being distracting. Yeah. But, I'm the kind of person that I lean into the cheese. I love that stuff. If it's timely, if it's rolled out in a timely manner. I love that you mentioned the Winnipeg thing, though. The fan base and the reactions. Did you see the guys in the white wedding dresses for the whiteout?
Oh, I didn't. Oh
my gosh. I just love to see what these fans come up with. But at that point, the only one thought came to mind for me. If I was a guy and I showed up to a hockey game in a wedding dress, my team better freaking win. So
yes.
I'm glad it worked out for them. That itchy long dress. He had on a gown. I mean, it was incredible. I got to send you the picture of the group.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm going to look that up. Like, those are the type of fans I love. Like, I want to be friends with people like that. Guys who wear wedding dresses to games for their team. Like, ridiculous, but you love it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have one more break to get to, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Edmonton Oilers. I don't want to call them the kids, but the comeback kids. So we'll talk that and wrap the show after this. All right, welcome back to the Hockey Hub. We found it. Our producer, Brennan, got the wedding dresses, the dudes in the wedding dresses for the Winnipeg Jets. Love this.
Like that's must-win energy, is it not?
The tube top, or like the tube top dresses, like not even sleeves. I love it.
Sleeveless with the helmet. I mean,
no, this is.
Some of the guys had like things written on their back. I can't remember what was written on it, but I mean, this is it.
Where are they getting those dresses? Like, are they getting them at a because we know wedding dresses aren't cheap. Like at a thrift store,
a thrift shop. Yeah, I would assume and hope they went to like a thrift shop.
If any of those guys are married,
dresses.
to like,
imagine if it's their wives' dress.
I would not be allowed. I don't know. I don't think I would be allowing that dress to be trampled all over at a sports event.
No.
But
And then to see what that arena looked like he's coming home with like cheese and beer all over your dress that you just spent money on once upon a time. So I'm right there with you. I probably wouldn't let him do it.
I love it. I want to see, I'm going to keep an eye out on some more like fan shenanigans stuff. It's only going to get better as the series goes on. We have like 3 minutes, Casey, but I really want to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. My theory, it's not really a theory. It's happened, and it's happened a little bit in the last couple of years, but it doesn't always happen. But teams that make it to the final, the Stanley Cup final, lose, come back, win it the next year. That could have happened to the Boston Bruins in 2020 if it wasn't for COVID, but I digress. That really still pisses me off because I feel like that was their year to finally do it. Anyway, Edmonton Oilers being that team that lost in the final, and I feel like they're going to make it all the way back. But we'll see. They have to get through the Vegas Golden Knights. They did in their usual Oilers fashion, coming back. Mark Stone was actually asked about it by Stormy on ESPN, being like, we know how they stay in games. How do you guard against that? But the Oilers did it again. They're fun to watch right now.
Oh my gosh, you can never count them out. And I get embarrassed that I've been that person that's counted them out like 3 seasons in a row. So you're right, though. There's a method to the madness where these teams just find their way back in it. And they're the identity of find a way. I mean, they can just trademark coming back and commanding third periods at this point. I think what helps them, they just have a good amount of cerebral players, and it's not just a McDavid thing. It's everybody figuring things out, making adjustments, and making a team as good as Vegas look like they couldn't figure it out. I mean, there was just a number of things that they were able to just make their own in the second period, in the third period, and do what they've done 3 years in a row.
Yeah, shout out Connor Brown. Yeah, been watching him and had a good regular season for them as well, better than previous years, and lighting it up in the playoffs. And when I used to work in Canada, we'd do so much work on the league and previewing the postseason. And one of the themes we always had that we looked at every year was what unsung heroes, and that's what you need. So you want your stars to be your stars, but your third or fourth liners, there's always one or two that need to be those unsung heroes. And Connor Brown so far, that was that breakaway goal, and just maybe because they're like, okay, this is Connor Brown, not Connor McDavid. We'll give him a little bit more room. Or you're not ever doing that on purpose,
right.
But just what he did. So shout out to him. And these are the guys that that are going to help you win the Stanley Cup, not just your stars. We talked about the Leafs, a Matthew Nyes, who's now becoming a star, the core 5. But all right, we've got 30 seconds left in the show. So Casey, I know you're super busy doing all sorts of stuff this week. Maybe see you on next week on the Hockey Hub, but we will have another episode next Monday. Have a great week, Casey. Fun talking to you. And we'll say goodbye for now to everyone. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.